This is music, and this is a thrashing first impressions video. Welcome to another first impressions video. In these videos, I share with you my first impressions of the many blind buys that I picked up in 2021 and 2022, mostly CDs. I'm having a blast chewing my way through all of this stuff because most of it turns out to be music I really enjoy, so that's great. I have this stack of CDs in this video, so let's get down to business. Up first, Concrete Forces, Mental Enforcers. This is no nonsense thrash metal, I would say. You have lots of kind of like classic era thrash metal styled riffage going on, like stuff that sounds inspired by old Metallica, old Megadeth, Old Testament, old Overkill, and some kind of thrash adjacent stuff as well, some Motorhead stuff, some more speed metal kind of stuff, and motor and traditional metal kind of stuff. But yeah, just solid, enjoyable thrash metal with lots of nods to the classic era of thrash metal. The vocals are serviceable. It's solid. It's not innovative or anything like that, but really enjoyable. I like this. Liked it. I was positively surprised because I was a bit, for some reason, nervous about that one. Up next, In the Midst of Life, We Are in Death by Cerecloth. This is death metal. It's quite heavy. It leans a tad towards some more doomy stuff every now and then, without it, in my opinion, being straight up death doom. But it should appeal to fans of death doom for sure. But yeah, you got some heavy parts, some mid-tempo parts for the most part. That's where they kind of operate this band on this release. And the vocals are just severely guttural. I think musically, perhaps, it falls under the rubric of cavernous death metal, but the production is actually quite crisp. It's not drowned in reverb and all that stuff. So I don't know, maybe it's more like ceremonial black metal. It has a bit of that kind of vibe to it. This is technically not a first impression because I have heard this album before, but I figured I wanted to include it anyways because it's good stuff that I want to recommend. Up next, DBC, Dead Brain Cells. DBC also stands for Dead Brain Cells. This is a Dive Bomb reissue. I think it's a reissue, but it's a Dive Bomb release for sure. So this is not crossover thrash, I would say. The name might lead you to think it's crossover thrash. It's more like old school, almost speed metal thrash. It's kind of raw and aggressive without being primitive, and there are some tech adjacent elements every now and then, but it's not technical thrash metal, I would say. It's fierce, it's fast, it's angry, it's aggressive, it's enjoyable. If you like thrash metal and you don't know DBC, I would suggest that you check him out because you might enjoy it. This one for sure I really liked. Up next, we have Cyclogenesis, Songs for Armageddon by Oblivion. This is another Dive Bomb release, and this is a compilation of demos by Oblivion. And this one is really interesting. It kind of documents this band's evolution from 1985 to 1990. It's only 5 years, and it's really interesting how much a band evolves in just 5 years. There's a massive write-up here. There's actually also a massive write-up in the booklet of this one. This is like an interview with some of the band members. This too. That's one of the things that's really awesome about Dive Bomb. A lot of their releases have like really detailed write-ups and really detailed interviews and stuff like that. I haven't read the write-up here, but I sort of, I guess, sampled parts of it, and they do discuss how the lineup changes can lead to the band going in a new direction. So, really interesting. The earliest demo is from 1985, and the newest one is from 1990. And the early stuff is really raw and aggressive, not primitive, but raw and aggressive thrash metal. And the most recent stuff is more technical and more melodic. I kind of prefer the more recent stuff, to be honest, but I still enjoy the old stuff as well. Some of the song titles on here are perhaps a tad, or they come across a tad problematic, but I haven't read the lyrics, I haven't read the write-up here, so I don't know if the songs are actually problematic. I don't want to, cast judgment based on ignorance, basically. But musically, it's great stuff. The vocals are a bit Slayer-esque. And again, depending on sort of the era of the band you listen to, it's either quite melodic and technical or quite raw and aggressive. But really good stuff. I enjoy this. The only gripe I have with this is that they start with the most recent stuff and end with the oldest stuff. I think if you've sort of taken it in the other direction or the other way around, that would give maybe a more, shall we say, chronological experience of exploring or experiencing the evolution of this band. But on the other hand, it starts out with the more recent stuff, which I enjoy the most. So I guess, whatever. Great stuff though. If you like thrash metal, check it out. Some more thrash metal for you. This is called Thrash Metal is Violence by Omission. So this is kind of blackened thrash, although you do have some quite melodic elements every now and then, but it's for the most part kind of raw thrash metal without being primitive. Again, it's not like 2 riffs per song. There is more stuff going on, and the opening track is called Bestial Belch, and that's just somebody burping, so that's a pretty precise title. But yeah, other than that, you got some fast-paced, aggressive thrash metal, kind of, at least to my ears, kind of pointing in the direction of early Teutonic thrash metal and maybe first wave kind of black metal. It's good fun, but I don't think it will appeal to everyone because of the kind of blackened nature of it all. But yeah, enjoyable stuff for what it is. Omission, thrash metal is violence. We have some more thrash metal. This one is called Wreaking Fear and Death by Pagan Fire. Filipino blackened thrash metal with actually quite a lot of elements from also traditional metal, but overall it is kind of blackened. And flipping you the bird, well, this time I did flip you the bird too, but I did it with this band, so I'm not alone. Whatever. Yeah, thrash metal stuff. The production is not super lo-fi, but it is kind of raw, and the performance is also a bit rough around the edges. So this is quite underground in that sense, and there is, I would say, there is some merit to taking this more like underground raw approach, with the performance being a bit rough around the edges. There's a certain authenticity to it that goes perfectly with the music of this band. Thrash metal, raw, kind of blackened. One thing that's really cool is that some of the songs are in, I think it's probably Tagalog. or Tagalog. I know most English speakers calls the language Tagalog, but actually one of my former students who was from the Philippines, she called it Tagalog. So whatever, it's in a language that's not English. It's in a local language, and that's always interesting to me. My favorite song on here is probably Power Elitist. But all of the songs are actually quite enjoyable. It's, like I said, it's aggressive, it's raw, it's not lo-fi, but it's certainly not clinical and crisp and pristine production. And so that captures the kind of dirty edge of the music very well. And also, there's like a super long, almost like bonus track in the end, which is from a live performance. And that's actually really enjoyable because it sounds like a very local gig, and it sounds like just that show was just a whole lot of freaking fun. So Pagan Fire, if you can find this, and you like your raw blackened thrash metal and you want to hear some thrash metal from the Philippines, check it out. The next one is this one here. It's called Tank Goodness by Panzer Ballet. And this came in a digipack, which is stored safely somewhere else. But I do have this poster, and that is what the cover artwork looks like. And here you have the band. Now, this is progressive experimental music. This is jazz meets metal, and not jazz meets metal in the sense of, Pestilence or Atheist or Cynic and all those bands where you got death metal instrumentation, and then you have thrash. A bit of thrash, but you have jazz scales and chords and stuff like that, and jazz fusion stuff showing up. That's not quite the case here. You do have your metal instrumentation, your drums, your bass, your distorted guitars, but you also have jazz instrumentation. You have saxophones and things like that. And this is basically, I would say it's jazz fusion with some metal instrumentation. So it is the jazz kind of scale runs. You have that on both the guitars and on the saxophones. But it's actually great stuff. I don't think this appeals to everybody, but if you're into like progressive and experimental music, if you like jazz fusion, if you like gent as well, I think this will be right up your alley. I really enjoy listening to this. It's mostly instrumental, but there is a cover version of Time of Our Lives from Dirty Dancing, and that's a pretty fun cover version. So I really like this for sure. The metal part, there is some gent stuff for sure. You have some gent styled riffage and so on and so forth going on, but it's not only gent. So I know a lot of people don't like gent music on the metal scene. At the end of the day, you like what you like, but this is great fun. I really, really if you are into progressive metal and experimental music, jazz fusion, check out Panzer Ballet's Tank Goodness. It's so much fun. Some more progressive metal. This is called Hoverface by Pathos. This is, I would consider this progressive thrash metal, maybe progressive power thrash. It has some up-tempo stuff. It has, your thrash metal aggression, but it also has your progressive metal kind of like complexity going on. There are parts of this that remind me a bit of Fate's Warning. I'm also reminded a bit of Target. Master Project Genesis, maybe a tiny bit of Voivod from the more kind of like when they're like somewhere in between thrash and progressive metal. So yeah, progressive thrash metal, not super techy, but you certainly do have some tech thrash stuff going on. And I think this will appeal to fans of tech thrash. I think it'll appeal to fans of progressive thrash metal. I think it will also appeal to fans of the more hard-edged progressive metal out there. So if you're into the heavier albums by, say, Dream Theater, if you like what Fate's Warning sounded like on No Exit, for example, although this is not as heavy as No Exit, I think it'll be right up your alley too. I certainly enjoy this. If you're into prog metal, if you're into thrash metal, more like melodic progressive thrash metal perhaps, check out Pathos. This was a very positive surprise. The next one is technically not a first impression. It's Repent's Doomed to Fail, featuring Jürgen on vocals. It's not a first impression technically. I picked this one up on CD, and then I bought it on vinyl a couple of months later, and then I listened to the vinyl, and I only recently got around to listening to the CD. So it's technically not a first impression. I've heard lots of people say that this is just good, solid thrash metal, that there's nothing new under the sun, but it's good. And I agree on the part that it's good. I think it's actually top class, super quality thrash metal. Jürgen sounds awesome. His vocals they're really aggressive, and actually, if you've heard him speak, it's hard to kind of believe that it's the same guy doing this super aggressive stuff singing. So the vocals are awesome. The music itself, I think, is awesome too. And I disagree with the they don't do anything new part. I think actually there are some quite original elements on this. For sure, it's not just rehashing stuff. They do some innovative things every now and then. My favorite tracks it's kind of like a stretch of tracks: Mutilation Ritual, Scientific Ideals, and Wimp Reaper. I really like those three tracks, but all the songs are actually just good. Not just good, but the songs are good, is what I'm trying to say. They're all enjoyable. So I think this is a great thrash metal album. I would say perhaps it's a bit underrated because they deserve more credit than they get, to be honest. There's some awesome guitar work going on. The songs are well composed. The vocals, like I said, aggressive. But there's also a bit of melody every now and then, and I really appreciate that too. So, check this out. It's great thrash metal. And up last, Bang Your Fucking Skull by Resistance, or Resistance. Thrash metal with some like speed metal, like dirty speed metal elements. The production here is not clinical. It's not raw either, but it's not lo-fi, but it leans more towards that end of things than the clinical end of things. So it has a kind of an underground edge to it. I think the vocals are probably an acquired taste. There's some kind of quasi-harsh vocals, some of it at a lower register. I don't think this will appeal to everyone. There's some screams again. I don't think the style of screaming will appeal to everyone. And there's some clean singing, which is probably also a quite acquired taste. But I think it fits the music, so I'm fine with it. It's for the most part raw, dirty, thrash metal, but not primitive. You do have a bit of almost a punky edge to some of it, but that might be the production. As you can see, they're kind of going for the Jack Daniels and beer image. Either that, or they pretend to be dead. But there's a bottle of beer here, so that's the drunk thrash metal stuff. I really enjoy it for what it is. So it's fun, dirty thrash metal. Not a masterpiece. I don't think it's for everyone. But if you just want some fun thrash, check it out. There is a pretty cool version of Necropolis on here, and that's the first time you hear the clean singing, and you may go, "What the f?" When you hear it, but for me, I just had to get used to it, to be honest, and then I was fine with it. So yeah, quite enjoyable. Another surprise as well. So there you go, a whole bunch of mostly thrash metal, but you had some death metal, some prog stuff too. I enjoyed all of these, so that was good for me. If you want to check out any of these releases or all of them, feel free to do that, because I have no power over anyone, but I will certainly recommend them all. Thanks for watching.